Hey everybody, welcome back to Untethered. We're here at the campground and it's getting kind of cool. That fall chill's coming on in the air and there's a lot of buzz in the campground about the dreaded process of winterizing and storing your trailer for the winter.
We have no plans to store our trailer. We're gonna keep going. This is something we used to have to think about. I think we've been able to find some stuff that will apply to everyone and some really cool hacks and tricks that we found out as well.
We're just going to share what works for us. I'd encourage all of you to go to your individual owner's manual for your RV and get the specific process from your manufacturer. But everybody's rig is different, so this is just what works for us. Again, we're not professionals, you guys know that by now, but we're just going to jump into what we would do if we were going to winterize this thing today and leave it for 6 months. All right, so step one, and the first thing and a pretty important thing you want to do is
cleaning and removing all traces of food or freezable items from your RV.
We used to use our RV more as a weekend getaway down at the lake and it didn't move very much, so one thing we would do is always get all of our clothes that we left in the RV washed, put them in totes where they're airtight, they don't get stinky, keep some ice out of them, etc. So I know that works really well. So
once you're comfortable with everything being secure and not attracting pests, we'll move on to the next step. So step 2 is taking care of any last minute maintenance or prep for the cold weather. You want to take this one away?
Yep, absolutely, and this is kind of a big one. You can do maintenance anytime, you should do maintenance anytime, but before you put it up for the winter, you got to think. You're going to shut this thing up and walk away from it for 2, 3, maybe 6 months before you see it again. So some things that I like to check before we shut it down for the winter. I like to check the seals around the window just to make sure there's not any cracking or discoloration. There's nothing really to caulk there, at least on our trailer, but you want to make sure you're checking the seals around all of your baggage doors. All these baggage doors have a light bead of silicone around them just to keep water out. Anything in there that's got little cracks or deviations in it or any bubbling, that could let water in over the winter and you could come back to a disaster in the spring. Same thing with your roof, checking all of your roof seals, checking the seals up around your front cap, just to make sure everything is nice and dry for winter so you don't come back to water damage in the spring. So a lot of this conversation actually came up because we just got finished up winterizing our boat, but I wanted to take a quick second to remind you all, because I know a lot of you have golf carts, a lot of you carry generators and miscellaneous power equipment out there. I really love this STABIL Marine. It does a really great job keeping your gas fresh over the winter. I've used it in my boat for years and every spring it fires right up. It's got some stuff in it to combat the ethanol and some of the other things like moisture that can get into the gas over the winter. It's made for boats, but versus regular STABIL that's 1 ounce per gallon, I think it is. This one's 1 ounce for 10. It's a little more expensive, but it's a better bang for your buck, and it's not gonna hurt non-marine equipment. So golf carts, generators, your boat, lawnmowers at your house, whatever. Anytime you're putting an engine in storage, go ahead and toss some STABIL Marine at it. We did find out in a more recent episode that we're not supposed to put any vent covers over our Furrion tankless water heater unless it's in storage. So this is where I would go ahead and put one of these screens back on my Furrion just to keep pests out for the year. In terms of water heaters, there's a million different kinds of water heaters, so I'm not gonna dive into that too deep. For us, we have a tankless water heater, and we just have 2 plugs to pull out down there. If you have a gas electric water heater with a tank on it, you're gonna have an anode rod that you'll pull out to completely drain the water heater. After you bypass it, of course, so that antifreeze doesn't get into the water heater and nothing freezes up for the winter. Another thing to do is to go ahead and make sure your tires are in good shape for the winter. Make sure they're aired up properly. As it gets cool, you're gonna lose some air pressure anyway, so you wanna make sure you're not coming back sitting on flats. Also, in terms of tires, I would highly recommend, if you're on a gravel lot, I would recommend going ahead and putting a 2x4 or something down so your tires aren't setting right on the gravel. Your tires are already going to get a little bit flat spotted over the winter as it is, and you definitely don't want those gravels and things digging into them. Another thing a lot of people do for long-term storage, and I used to do as well, is go ahead and put the sun covers on the tires. Just anything you can do to protect your tires over the course of the winter. Think about your jacks. And the jury's out on this one, so you can let me know in the comments. From what I hear, it's 50-50. Do you leave your electric jacks down all winter or not? I know for me personally, when I've stored mine over the winter, I've left the electric jacks down and the rig completely level. When I had a bumper pull without auto leveling, I always left the stabilizers down over winter. But let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that. Once we're done with all of our winterizing here, the last thing we'll want to do is make sure we unhook our power, our water, our sewer, get all those hoses drained and put away somewhere safe where they won't leak. Also, make sure to kill the battery disconnect on your batteries. You're still going to have a little bit of a draw for things like smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, so you could still have a dead battery in the spring. What I used to do, I had a little suction cup solar panel that gator clipped right onto the battery, slap that thing on the side of the rig, and it just trickle charges your batteries all winter. You may also decide that you want to disconnect your negative battery cables, so those small items like your clock and your carbon monoxide detector and your smoke detectors don't suck your battery dry over the course of the winter. I'll leave that up to you guys. I know for me, I would either want some kind of trickle charge on the battery or everything completely off when it's not in use.
So the next step is actually winterizing those pipes. 1, you can blow them out with an air hose. 2, you can put antifreeze into the pipes. We've tried both. We've had success with both.
Yep.
If there's another method, let us know.
So we've had a few different trailers, as we've mentioned to you guys before, and every one of them is a little bit different, so I won't go too deep into this. I'll say right now for our Grand Design and a lot of other RVs on the road, we have the Nautilus system. So they actually make it pretty easy. You can just set your switches here to the winterize mode, hook a short hose up to your fresh inlet, put the other end of it in a jug of antifreeze and turn on your water pump, and it'll actually siphon the antifreeze out and into the system. So that actually makes it pretty easy, and what we always do is we'll have somebody standing on the outside with the hose in the jug kind of monitoring the level. Once you have your water pump on, it's going to start to suck antifreeze through the system, and you want to start at the highest point. So we always start with the shower, work our way to the sink and the toilet and so on. And really all you need to do here is just to let the faucet run until you see dark pink antifreeze coming out and you're sure there's no water in it, and then let it run a couple seconds longer just to be safe. Make sure you dump a little antifreeze down the P-traps in your sink so none of that stuff freezes over the course of winter. And one thing that's extremely important, if you have washer and dryer hookups, whether or not you use or have ever used a washer and dryer, you want to make sure and get you a short piece of leader hose, screw it onto the hot and cold side of your washer and dryer hookups, and run antifreeze through there as well, and just have it push out into a bucket. Be careful not to make a mess, because it will. But you want to make sure that antifreeze gets all the way up to that point, because when you have water pressurized in the system, it goes everywhere. So you want to make sure and get antifreeze everywhere if that's the route you're taking. Angela mentioned the blowout method. There's a plug you can buy at Walmart for just a few bucks that goes right here in your freshwater city water inlet. And what I've done in the past is I would apply air to it with an air compressor up to about 30 pounds, and I'd have Angela inside opening valves and letting water blow out until we see no more water and it's just air. I did this a lot when I lived in Arkansas because it never got too cold. Once I came to the Midwest, I started going exclusively with the antifreeze method. If you don't have a Nautilus system, there's really 2 ways to get antifreeze into the system, maybe 3 depending on your model. 1, a lot of trailers will have an inlet on the side that you take off a cap and put a water hose into to fill up your freshwater tank. You can pour antifreeze directly in there, just keep in mind you have to flush it and clean it out in the spring. A better option in my opinion is to use a hand pump like this. It's really simple. It just screws into your freshwater inlet. This end goes down into a jug of antifreeze, and you just push it through and have somebody on the inside opening valves. This actually pumps really fast. It's what I use to push antifreeze into my boat engines, and I've had this one for a long time, and it's a really cheap way to make it easy on yourself. And then in terms of actually winterizing it and doing the plumbing side of the work, the last thing I like to do when everything's said and done and we're all winterized is I'll come under here and take these low point drain plugs out. Some campers have a valve on them. Ours actually has plugs, so what I always used to do was to take those 2 plugs out and put them in the housing for the water heater. That way you know right where they're at next year. They're in with your anode rod, you've got your plugs in there. It's hard to forget where they're at that way. What that'll do is that'll let all the liquid in the low points of the RV come right out of this drain. So if you had any water left anywhere on the low side, it's going to let it drain on out. And make sure as well that you dump all your holding tanks, including your freshwater tank. You don't want to leave any liquid in there whatsoever. So you want to make sure that you get your sewer, your gray water, if you have multiples, make sure everything's nice and dry. Make sure your valves are shut. And if you dumped your tanks before you started all this process, don't worry about it. Antifreeze in the tank won't hurt anything, but water will. And definitely don't leave any sewer hoses or anything like that hooked up that could cause a problem. And don't forget, when it's all said and done, make sure and pour just a little bit of antifreeze in your toilet right on top of the bowl, because any water that's in there can freeze and crack your toilet over the course of the winter. Aside from that, we're pretty much done with the winterization process. Next on the agenda, let's talk about moisture control.
So the fun thing is, while we're here, I've been running around asking some people,
Annoying people, bothering people, however you want to look at it.
So we thought it would be really fun to just see all the different things that people do, some things they've done that haven't worked. So as far as moisture control, we've mentioned the mattress, pulling the mattress out, getting it some ventilation. Some people will wrap it, maybe put it in a mattress bag. Also, I use damp rid. I've used damp rid for years. I actually have this bucket sitting here because I forgot to put it in the boat when I put the cover on it, so I'll take care of that later today. But damp rid's great. Comes in all shapes and sizes, from little packets you can hang in the closet to great big buckets that'll pretty much take care of your whole RV. This is a good time to mention, if you don't have a 12-volt fridge, if you have more of the traditional propane electric fridge and you've been using it all summer, odds are you've got some ice buildup on the back. So it's a good idea a couple of days before you shut everything down to go ahead and turn the fridge off, let it defrost, dry it out as best you can. That way you don't have a puddle in the floor after you get done winterizing. Good catch, Johnson. We've heard some people that use Cab Fresh. We have a friend, and we've tried this too, the charcoal.
Yeah, charcoal works great. I did that one year, like a small trash can, and dumped a bag of charcoal in it. I know people that just set the whole bag on their kitchen floor, and then you use it to start a campfire next year.
So it doesn't go to waste.
Right.
Yeah, it worked out great.
What's next?
So next, let's talk about an important one, pest control.
Yeah, the creepy crawlies and the little mice love to find warm, or at least warmer, places to hang out for the winter. Historically, I've always kept it simple, and I've used Ortho Home Defense around all the edges of the perimeter inside the camper. And I'll usually go to like a Tractor Supply and get the bar chunks that mice feed on. So what'd you find out when you polled the audience?
A lot. Now, I think we've heard of diatomaceous earth.
I think people generally just sprinkle it around their jacks, their tires, their steps, anywhere that an ant or a spider or a bug could crawl up your RV and into the coach.
Right. Another very popular, dryer sheets. I've heard regular dryer sheets and lavender dryer sheets, and that seems to be across the board. Huh. Everyone does it in addition to everything else, because the worst case scenario, their RV smells delicious when they get in it.
That's true.
Another is peppermint oil. I have heard of this. I've heard good and bad, but we have a lot of people in the RV park that say that they still do peppermint oil. They've had good luck with it. One person actually said they made their own mixture, peppermint oil, cayenne pepper, and cinnamon.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It keeps the bugs and mice out, okay.
Our soap seems to be very popular.
Now, I have heard that.
Cut up in chunks.
Yeah.
So there's one that we haven't heard of that seemed to be popular in the park, and that's GUS'S mouse repellent. You can get it on Amazon or like Fleet and Farm.
I've never heard of that.
So we may drop a link down. Again, we haven't tried it, but it seems to be a very popular item that people are using for pest repellent.
Nice.
So there's one more that you wanted to talk about. Something very new for us, but we're excited about it.
Yeah, and for that, we're going to have to go under the trailer.
Dum, dum, dum. This one comes from our friends that we met at the rally, Brian and Jenny. We thought this was a fantastic idea. So we're going to show you what it is, show you how you can get it if you're interested.
So when we met Brian and Jenny at the rally, we were talking about a lot of different things, and Brian actually has, I guess, a 3D printer where he makes a lot of different things, and he was telling me that where he actually goes to crank down his spare tire had a huge gap. And we got to looking at it, and that really is the perfect gap for a large mouse or whatever to crawl through. It goes right into the underbelly. If you've never pulled the underbelly off your RV, it's full of wires and plumbing and everything else, so odds are if a mouse gets in there, something's going to get messed up. So Brian actually made these nice little covers, and he sells them in plenty of different sizes, and they just kind of snap right around the spare tire bar. like that, and that just blocks the way in for the mice. So he actually sells these online. They're really cheap and affordable, so I'll put a link in the description. He sells all kinds of different sizes of this and a lot of other cool stuff too. So thank you, Brian, for giving me one of these to try out, and I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to get this on. What we'll do later today is I'll take a little two-sided tape and put it right around here and just snap it together and push it on. Nice and easy. While you're under here, you'll notice there's a lot of places that have like spray foam insulation to fill gaps from the factory. It's a good time to go ahead and take a look at that, make sure it's still there, make sure it's not degraded and flaking, and if you see any gaps, go ahead and fill them in with some spray foam or whatever you choose to do it. Doesn't really matter what you use, just fill the hole up so the outside stuff can't get in.
So those are the few things that either we've used or we've heard about. Let us know. I know there's something out there that we haven't heard about.
Let us know in the comments.
Drop it down in the comments.
And not just for us, it lets everybody else see the good ideas you guys have too. So hopefully that helps you guys out if you are putting your trailer into winter storage this year. For our weekend warriors out there, I hope you guys had a killer spring, summer, and early fall RVing. Good luck getting everything winterized, and we can't wait to see you in the comments to see what you guys are doing over the winter and where your travels take you next year. For our full-time and friends out there, hope to see you on the road. Ange, thanks for polling the audience and annoying everyone in the campground with your questions.
It comes naturally to me.
So that's going to wrap it up for this one. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video. Those things really help us out in the YouTube world. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
See you later.